Hey everybody, it's Piper here, and this week we are making pop-ups. I've made a popcorn pop-up. You are going to come up with your own idea for your pop-up. I'm going to show you how to make these spiral mechanisms for your pop-up. You can look several different ways. This is a crazy pop-up, all different colors. That's a fun one to do. And then we're going to create our own story to go in a pop-up. It's popcorn's popping right out of the book. Okay. So let me walk you through how this project's going to go. For today's project, you will need some scrap paper, your scissors, pencil, possibly an eraser, glue stick, your sketchbook, markers, colored pencil. You don't need both, but you might like both. Construction paper and some printer paper, maybe. You don't need both again, but you might like to have both. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to put my coloring things aside for now. And this spiral pop-up can be done with printer paper or with construction paper. I'm going to start with construction paper. So I have this pretty green construction paper, and I'm going to use that for my spiral. And I'm going to use my sketchbook. I'm going to find a clean page here, and this is going to be my pop-up mechanism. So how a pop-up works is on the fold in the paper. So this is the fold that we're going to use to make this pop-up work. So I'm going to put this aside for now, but we should note the size of this is half a sheet of paper. So when I go to do my pop-up mechanism, I want to make sure that my spiral is not bigger than half of the paper, okay, this way. And I'm probably going to do a couple. So I might do big to small spirals, but I want to make sure the size is right to go in here. So I'm going to cut out my shapes first and place them in there to make sure they all fit. So to start with, let's do a circle. Now I have a little jar to trace around, but you can just draw a circle yourself. You don't have to do it this way. It's just a way to start. Kind of a loose shape. And I'm going to do this in marker. You do it in pencil, but I just want to do it in marker so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to take the black marker because I think you're going to be able to see that the best. Okay, so this is my circle on the outside. And now I'm just going to draw a spiral going in. And I'm not going to make it too skinny because that would break. And I don't want to make it too wide because that'll make the pop-up kind of do strange things. So we want it fairly even throughout. Now, if I was going to decorate this, I would do it now. So I might take my marker. And I don't know, maybe I just put some stripes on it. You dream up whatever you think would look cool. I don't want you to copy me. I just wanted to show you how this pop-up works so you can create with it. Use your imagination. So I'm just decorating this on one side, and then I'm going to cut it out, turn it over, and then I would decorate on the other side. Now, it could be all kinds of things. It doesn't just have to be random decorations. I could make this look like a snake if I love snakes, or I could put flowers all over it if I love flowers. I'm just showing you how this mechanism works first. So you're going to take your scrap paper and turn this over and decorate this side. Now you might make it something completely different. You are going to be able to see both sides in the end when it pops up. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back over, and now I'm going to cut my spiral. I'm going to do this carefully to make sure that I'm staying on my line that I've drawn for my spiral, and making sure I don't get it too fat or too thin, just in the middle. Kind of like a Goldilocks kind of thing here, just right. It's going all the way around. Till I get to the end of my line, and I'm going to stop. So now I have a little spiral. Okay, and I'm going to take my sketchbook and I'm going to open it to the page I want to have my mechanism on. So I'm going to use this page, and I can kind of see my cupcakes. I'm going to open it to a page. You can't see that. Okay. So in my sketchbook, I'm going to decide where this is going to go. And I think I'm going to put it in the middle here. So one end is going to be glued to this page, and the other end is going to be glued to the other side of the page. And how we're going to do that is we're going to decide first which end you're going to glue. So I'm going to glue this tail end here. I'm going to use my scrap paper to isolate that end. All right, so I just have that end out, and I'm going to put glue on it, just on the very end, okay? Now you have to be careful not to get glue in other places, because it will glue to your paper and your pop-up won't work. So now I'm going to place that on my paper and push it, oops, scooted on me. All right, so I'm going to push it down, try and keep it from sliding. And then I'm going to pop up the other end, this end, center here. I'm going to slip my scrap paper underneath that. And I'm going to put glue on the other side. You see how that this is on one side facing up, and the glue I put on before was on the back side, so it faced down. So now I'm going to put my pop-up flat back down, and I'm going to shut my book. I'm going to give it a little bit of pressure just to make sure that glue adheres. And now I'm going to open my book back up to the right page. Ready for this? Ta-da! There's your pop-up spiral. Now you don't have to do it as a circle. There are all sorts of shapes you can do. So let's try another shape. This time I think I want maybe the pink paper. All right, so on the pink paper, this time I'm going to just draw a crazy shape. And I make sure that when I draw it, I don't make it bigger than the space I have for it on the bottom of my sketchbook. Make sure it's not wider than the sketchbook or the space that I have for it. So I'm just going to kind of give myself a little outline of it can't be bigger than that size, right? Everybody see that? I'm going to do it in the black marker so you can see. I'm just roughly tracing where the edge of the sketchbook is, so I don't make it bigger than the size I have for it. Okay, let's move that stuff aside so you can see what I'm doing. Got a little messy here. All right, so now I'm going to work on that crazy shape. I can do a rectangle if I wanted to, but I think I'm just going to do kind of just a shape. It can be any shape. All right, so there's my shape, and now I have to decide where it begins. I think I'm going to begin right here. And again, I don't want to make it too thick or too thin. I'm just trying to make it even, because if it's not, it will change how the pop-up works. And that's okay. You'll see as you play with this. So that's my shape, and I've ended my line there. I didn't go all the way through. I left, it's sort of like a maze. You want an open path left, right? Okay, except right in the very beginning where you're going to come in with your scissors. Now, if I were going to decorate, I would do that right now. And maybe I will do some polka dots. You could decorate this any way you want. And you could use the colored pencils, you could use your markers, you can use all different colors. It's entirely up to you. Please don't copy me. This is just to inspire you, to get your creative ideas flowing, so you can create your own thing. Think outside the box. Create something wonderful that expresses your artistic abilities. So those are my polka dots. And now I'm going to cut out the outside shape. Now this needn't be exact here. All right, just got one more little piece to get cut out. All right, now I'm going to start to decorate the back side. I've got my scrap paper here, and I'm going to get my markers. Colored pencils would work really well as also. And I'm going to do some more polka dots here. And with a marker, I can see my line on the other side, so I can see exactly where to put my polka dots. Although it doesn't have to be like this. It's really, really entirely up to you how you want this to look. Really just want to show you how the mechanism works. And then I want to see what incredible creative things you come up with. Okay, so now that I have it decorated on both sides, I'm going to turn it back over and I'm going to cut on my line again. There's so many things you could do with this, so many shapes. I wonder how this one's going to look when it pops up. It'll look kind of crazy, huh? Crazy wiggly line. So there's so many things you could do with this. You could write a story or a joke on this section where we put polka dots. You could write something in there as well as make a decorative pattern. And I'm going to show you one other thing you can do to create something uniquely your own, which is to glue things onto the spiral once we've got it attached to the pop-up mechanism, to our sketchbook in this case, which is basically a valley fold in paper. And all I mean by a valley fold is the fold in the paper going this way. Let me show you in the sketchbook. So the mechanism works on the opening of this, that's a valley fold of the paper. So yeah, it looks like a V, the valley fold, and the mechanism works on that. So I'm going to add our next pop-up here. I'm going to put it on the bottom here, make sure that it fits okay. It's not overlapping with the other one, although it's okay if it overlaps a little bit, but you got to make sure that the two ends that you're gluing down do not, well, they could attach to that. You could experiment with it to see what happens if you do, but I'm going to make sure that my two ends go on either side of the paper. So I'm going to get my glue stick, and I'm going to get my scrap paper, I'm flipping this over and I'm gluing one side. And I'm going to put it back down. Stick it down. So the glue sticks on to the sketchbook. Now I'm going to pull up this end, stick my scrap paper underneath it so I'm isolating it so I don't get glue on the other parts. I just want it right on the tip there, on the top side. Pull out my scrap paper, and then all I have to do is just shut my book and press down. Ready for this? And there's my pop-up. Well, that one's a crazy squiggly one, huh? Kind of like how that one turned out. Starting to look like a roller coaster ride. Now I'm going to add one more at the top. And so I want a different color piece of construction paper, maybe. I think maybe I'll use this blue. I think that's pretty. And I'm going to do a different shape this time. But before I start that, I want to make sure that it fits on the space I have for it. So I'm just going to outline just roughly where the edge of the sketchbook is. Now, if it came out a little, it's going to show on the outside of your sketchbook, which is totally okay. I just want you to be aware that's what would happen. Okay, so this time I'm going to cut my shape out first. Makes it a little more manageable to get in under the camera. Okay, so I'm going to do a rectangle this time. And I'm going to start my rectangle right here. And I'm going to follow the lines around like I'm making a maze. So you always have this little corridor. You don't want it to get too close to the wall beside it. Always make a little corridor. And one last corridor. And I don't go all the way to the end, okay? You're going to leave it open. So it's like a maze. All right, let's see. What colors do we want to put on this one to decorate? How about some green? And this time, ooh, maybe I'll do squares. You could do so many ways. So many ways you could decorate this. I'm just going to cut along those lines. So this is a rectangle spiral. The mechanism works the same as the other two spirals. It's just a different shape. And I think you can see that any shape is really possible as long as the main thing to remember is to try and keep it so there's this distance between the two lines. And then when you get to the end, don't go all the way to the end or you'll cut off that center, which is okay. You can do that. Just give you a different look. Okay, so now I've got my book again, my sketchbook, and I'm going to make sure that fits there. Decide which end I'm going to glue where. I could do it the other way. I've been gluing the outside edge. Maybe I glue the center edge this time, the center, the end of it. And here, maybe that's the side I glue here. Let's try that this time. So I'm going to need my scrap paper, and I'm just going to flip it over and isolate it so I can glue that side. So I've isolated that, and I'm just going to put a little glue right at the end. Remember, the reason I'm isolating it is so I don't get glue on the rest of my piece, because that will glue down to the paper as well, and my pop-up won't work. So now I'm going to place it. Push that little piece down that has the glue on it. And then I'm going to put the glue on the top side, but I still want to isolate it so I don't get glue other places. So I'm sticking my paper underneath it. Glue right on the end. Close my book. Put a little pressure there. And pull up my other paper. And that's how that mechanism works. See that one? So now we have 3 different mechanisms. Well, it's a spiral mechanism, but 3 different shapes working on the valley fold. Now, that's just how this works. Let's do that storytelling I talked about. So we have 3 different levels here. We're gonna tell a story with words. We're going to illustrate it. We can use the back of the sketchbook as well to illustrate it. Let's put this all together. Okay, let's put all these ideas together. So the first thing I have to do is think about what story I'm going to tell on my page in my sketchbook. I'm still using my sketchbook. I'm still using that valley fold, just a different page. I've got my examples here, so I kind of have an idea of what I want to do. And so I've decided to just tell a little story, and it's going to be about popping popcorn. So the first thing I want to do is create artwork on my background, which is either side of my sketchbook. So I'm going to draw out a little popcorn box like you get at the movie theater. I'm going to cut this out and I'm going to glue it down onto my sketchbook. Now you don't have to do it this way. You could also just draw directly on the sketchbook. Either way works. Whichever one you like to do is just fine. And you could do a combination of both, which is what I'm going to do. Make sure I get those stripes on my popcorn. Now when you tell your story, make it your own story. There's so many ideas, so many things that you could do. Excuse me. Maybe it's the story of something funny that happened. Maybe, like me, you make up a poem and you illustrate the poem. So I want you to be thinking about what story you could tell. Maybe it's the story of you. And how can you best use your artwork to illustrate your words? So here's my little popcorn bucket. I'm going to put it down here in the corner. I'm using my scrap paper so I don't get glue on anything else. And I'm going to glue down my popcorn bucket. I'm just doing this as an example. I want you to be inspired by what I do, but I don't want you to copy what I do. So make it your own somehow. I know you're creative. You can think of something imaginative to create your own story. So I'm going to illustrate a little bit of popcorn on my book itself. I want it to look like the popcorn is exploding out of this little container down here. I'm going to draw all kinds of popcorn. And maybe some of it will be covered up by my spirals, but I'm sure a lot of it will also show. So I'm going to put them all over. Okay, now I'm going to use my markers to make the popcorn look buttery. You could use your colored pencils or crayons, whatever you'd like to use. I like the markers for showing you how to do this because they really show up on the video. Sometimes if you just do pencil, it doesn't show up. Make sure you can see what I'm doing. So now I've illustrated the background that I now will put my spirals on. I'm going to put this aside for just a second. Now I'm going to do my spirals. And I'm going to draw in marker just so you can see it, but I would suggest you use pencil, because if you wanted to change your lines, it would be much easier with a pencil. With a marker, you're really going to see in the end that in your artwork. So first I'm going to create my shape, and I think I'm just going to do a circle shape for this one. And now I'm going to create that little maze shape, making sure it's not too thick or too thin, and go around to the center and make sure I don't connect it there. Well, if you do when you cut out that little piece, it's okay. I just want to leave mine in. And now I'm going to cut out that shape with my scissors. Now, if I wanted to decorate this in some way, add a pattern or shapes or something, this would be the time to do it before I cut it out, because once I cut it out, it's harder to color. But I'm not going to do that this time. I'm going to add pieces of paper. I'm going to glue popcorn to my spiral. Think about what you could attach to your spiral to make it beautiful and to illustrate your story, whatever story it is you're telling. You want to illustrate it. Create some movement with the pop-up mechanism. By the way, this is also a fabulous way to make cards. So I'm going to get my sketchbook again, and I want to make sure I have my scrap paper. I'm going to create my pop-up now. Think about where I want my ends, where I want it to start and begin. And I might flip it over so you can't see my marks as much. And I'm going to have my spiral start here. So I'm going to put the glue on the underside and glue it down to this page. All right, so get your glue stick. I'm going to flip it over, isolate that end by putting it over my scrap paper so I don't get glue on anything else. Remove the scrap paper and glue it down. Maybe right there. It likes to move a little bit. Okay, so then I'm going to isolate the center by putting my scrap paper underneath it, kind of going in on that spiral, and putting glue on that end as well, the opposite end. And this time I'm putting glue on the top side. So it will glue to this opposite paper when I shut it. And I'm going to remove this so I don't get all that glue on my other paper, because it will glue everything down. And then I'm just going to shut my book and push down, so make sure the glue is sticking. And open it up, and there's my spiral mechanism. Now I'm going to cut out little pieces of popcorn to go on my spiral. So I will need I'm going to use white paper. So I'm going to use this white paper to draw my popcorn on. And then I'm going to glue it to my spiral. Those are my popcorn shapes. I'm just going to cut it out roughly to start, make it a little bit easier to cut out. So I've got my popcorn drawn out, and I'm going to cut out the shape of that. I think the yellow marker really makes the popcorn look buttery. Think about how you could use color to tell your story. How can you use color to help illustrate the story you're going to tell? So now I have my popcorn cut out, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the spiral where I want the popcorn to be. I got a little glue right there. Take my popcorn, and stick it on there. Okay, and keep going with that. Got some more popcorn to cut out. Now, if scissors give you trouble, like, they don't do exactly what you want them to do. It doesn't have to be tight to the shape. You can always just do a rough outline. Now I'm going to decide where I want to put my next piece of popcorn. I think I want to put it right there. And I'm putting the glue on the spiral and then sticking my popcorn on. Just give it a little squeeze. And keep going like that with the popcorn. But right now I want to write my story in a spiral and get that on my artwork as well. So this time I think I'm going to do like a flower kind of shape, although in the end it won't really look like a flower. It'll probably just look like a crazy spiral. So that's kind of what I want, is a crazy looking spiral. Okay, I've drawn my shape. I'm going to outline it in marker just so you can see it a little bit better on camera. And then I'm going to start my little maze track, not getting too close to the edge. Try and get that line even if you can, not too thin, not too thick. Okay, now before I cut it out, I'm going to write my little poem that I've written about popcorn. I'm going to put it right in this track. This is pop, pop, popcorn, bop. It's the popcorn bop. I keep turning and writing my poem. Hop, hop, because popcorn does hop. Explode. Okay, I keep turning it. And drop. Pop, pop. Add the butter. Plop. Okay. And then it's going to be pop, pop, popcorn, and turn it all the way around. Stop. So it doesn't overflow the bowl. All right, let's cut that shape out roughly. Get rid of our scrap paper. I'm going to cut that shape out. Think of all the things that you could create pop-ups of. Kites and flowers, animals. It would be really fun to dream up some different things. I think I could keep going all day making different types of pop-ups, getting new ideas as I went. So now I'm cutting along that original line that I put in. I've made a pretty long spiral so I could fit my poem in. And it doesn't have to be a poem. You could just write a little story. Or tell a joke. I think that would be fun if you had a funny joke to put in. All right, I'm gonna come to the end of my spiral, and then I'm gonna bring my book back and decide where this goes. Now, you'll notice that when you end up opening this up, some of that poem is gonna be face down. So what I'm gonna do is, before I glue it in there, I'm going to write the poem again on the back. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'll be right back. So I'm gonna cut out some more popcorn, glue it to my spiral. Remember to put the glue on the spiral and not the back of this so you don't get glue other places. And I'll meet you at the end. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed making pop-ups with me. I hope you'll send me a picture of your artwork. I'd love to see what you came up with. All right, have a great day, and I'll see you next week.